Namaste and welcome to another edition of the Bharatvaarta Weekly. I'm Roshan Cariappa and I have with me Abhishek Paul and Nirav Kanodra to take you through the news and events of the week that was. We're going to dive into what was important, what made news, and bring you some diverse perspectives on that. So this week, there was a launch of ISRO's maiden solar mission, the Aditya L1. The government also constituted a committee to explore one nation, one election. China released a standard map which is proven to be extremely controversial. All of this and more on this weekly. If this is the first time you're joining us, don't forget to follow or subscribe to us on your favorite platform. We publish episodes on politics, policy, and culture every week. And let's get on with the news for this week. After the successful soft landing of Chandrayaan 3, ISRO has launched the country's maiden solar mission, Aditya L1. It is India's first solar space observatory and was launched by the PSLV C57. It will carry 7 different payloads to have a detailed study of the sun, 4 of which will observe the light from the sun, and 3 others will measure in situ parameters of the plasma and magnetic fields. Aditya L1 will be placed in a halo orbit around the Lagrangian point, or L1, which is 1.5 million kilometers from the Earth and the Sun's direction. It is expected to cover the distance in 4 months' time. Well, it seems like ISRO has no chill at all. So soon after Chandrayaan, we have the Aditya L1 mission, and it's not really a mission to the sun, as is obvious. I mean, it's a point called L1, which is about 15 lakh kilometers away from the Earth. And interestingly, this is a point where the Earth's gravitational field and the sun's gravitational field kind of cancel out. You know, the satellite sort of orbits in that sort of a halo, right? And as I mentioned, I mean, it's going to study all the solar flares and study the various components of the sun and so on and so forth. Nirav, this is tremendous news.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I think there were like a lot of jokes. So there were people who were saying like Chandrayaan is a hoax, and then after the mission to the moon, why don't you send another one to the sun? So ISRO has done that. So basically, this is about 1% of the distance between the Earth and the sun, and you as you mentioned, right? So there's a Lagrange point, which is if you look at the gravitational force, I think it's like mass of one body, mass of the second body, and distance r1 and r2 raised to 4, if I remember my physics correctly. There is a neutral point, and this will orbit around that neutral point. So this is as close as we can get to the sun. And see, there are a lot of implications. See, a lot of people say that we don't know much about how the change in sunspot activity has caused climate change in the past. And people say that the old ice ages, etc., which had happened, or events where the dinosaurs were wiped out, etc., we don't know much. And this is something where probably we could know a bit more. But what this has done is this is just highlighting our technical capabilities in space, ISRO as an organization being a low cost ability, and this also like basically is highlighting India's achievements in science and technology. And obviously this is like another big event, so inspires a whole generation of kids to take up such stuff, right? So such careers, these things are possible, and makes us imagine a lot more. So I think all in all, this is like really hats off to ISRO. It's an organization which has consistently punched above its weight, given all the resources, like the manpower, the money, all of the resources what it gets inputs. I think the output is phenomenal, right? And I think commercial space applications will keep going up. You're seeing Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk being a part of it. I think ISRO will start doing a lot more other commercial stuff as well, because more business will come their way. All in all, this is a very, very fantastic news, and it'll have a big multiplier effect going forward.
So ISRO is functioning like a startup, right? I mean, they have launches coming up every few months. Fantastic stuff, folks. I mean, if you haven't checked out already, I think you should definitely listen to Mission ISRO. It's a Spotify audio series narrated by Harsha Bogle, and he talks about how ISRO was formed and Vikram Sarabhai and plenty of other things. Right? Very exciting stuff. Really, really fun to listen to. So do check it out. It's on Spotify. All right, moving closer to the earth. Last week, the government constituted a committee headed by former President of India, Sri Ramnath Kovind, to explore the possibility of one nation, one election. This report of the committee has come a day after Parliamentary Affairs Minister Mr. Prahlad Joshi said the government has convened a special session of the parliament between 18th to 22nd September 2023. The concept of one nation, one election in India aims to synchronize elections for the Lok Sabha and all state assemblies. Abhishek, I know this has been something that has been discussed for a while now, right? The fact that it can reduce costs, the fact that it can ease some of the administrative burden, and more importantly, I think there is a focus on governance rather than always being in a perennial election mode. But it definitely is not without challenges, right? I mean, it will require some constitutional amendments, and yeah, how do you kind of see this?
Yeah, so first of all, it's not official whether the special session of parliament that has been called is for this topic itself, but there is a lot of speculation about it in the media. So it could be one of the possible reasons for calling this session. So, as you rightly said, there are some very obvious benefits that we could get from having one election cycle every 5 years, which has most of the elections at one go, right? Whether it is the parliamentary election or the state elections. I don't know if it will go further than that. But yeah, so that obviously gives us an advantage in terms of cost savings. It gives an advantage in terms of lesser bandwidth utilization of all the government machinery, right? Who leave their regular jobs and get into election duty uh, every few years. So, yeah, obviously there are some administrative benefits and cost savings, but there will be a lot of opposition to this from the current opposition, because the narrative is that this is being done by the BJP to kind of suit them. It suits them because the theory behind it is that if you have a state election grouped together with the national elections, then the voter might only consider national issues while giving the vote, and ignore, and state issues or local issues could get ignored, and that would sort of benefit a national party like the BJP against, let's say, a party which is limited to a state or a region, right? So obviously, like, the opposition will say that there is a sort of malignant motive behind this, right? That is one thing, and again, as you said, there are going to be a lot of steps that will need to be taken, including constitutional amendments, and that will also involve, I think, getting it approved through state assemblies and so on. So, as you said, right now, a committee is being formed under President, past former President Covid, and in the past, I believe there have been some proposals that have come out in the form of articles, etc., by people like Vivek Debroy, uh, where he's talked about how do you transition from the various different terms, right, that are currently there. Because if you suddenly start it from 2024, what will happen is that certain governments, right, let's say the Karnataka government, which got elected this earlier this year, what happens to them, right? So how do you transition various states who have a currently a different cutoff point than, say, the May June 2024 that you have for the Lok Sabha? So there are several suggestions of how you can transition it over 5 years, and obviously certain governments will have to be given a slightly different term than the 5 year, right? So that it gets merged after a point in time. So those are the kind of details which the committee will have to be worked. But yeah, overall, I expect a lot of heated debate around this, and no sort of political consensus that will come around it.
Well, certainly an interesting development. And for a country as large and complex as India, it does kind of make sense to streamline these things for sure, right? Moving on, last week the Chinese released a new standard map of China 2023 in what it calls an effort to eliminate problem maps. However, a closer look at the map shows that the map itself has a bunch of problems. It shows the whole state of Arunachal Pradesh and Aksai Chin as its territory. India lodged a strong protest against the map and rejected claims made by Beijing, saying that they have no basis to claim Indian territory. China, in response, has claimed that it is just a routine annual exercise and has asked not to over interpret the action. Well, Nirav, is this a routine annual exercise or some kind of 3D chess by China?
No, so see, I think China has disputes. So China is one country. If you really see, it has got land borders with the most number of countries. So we've got disputes on Aksai Chin and Arunachal Pradesh, all of which they claim is their own because a certain Dalai Lama was born there in Tawang instead of Tibet. So they count it as a part of their Tibet province. They have a dispute where along the Amur River, which is the border between north of North Korea, which is the border between China and Russia. I think that side they have some disputes there. They are claiming the entire island of Taiwan, which they are claiming. They have the famous, the old one was called the 9 dash line, but now they've made a 10 dash line. So Vietnam, Philippines, and Malaysia are all protesting against that as well. So see, I think if you remember, I want to go back like the Ramayana, right? What was the Ashwamedh Yagna? Ashwamedh Yagna is wherever my horse runs, that territory is mine. So this is what they're trying to do. Like first, you kind of they are projecting power. They're projecting power, and they have issues also like we've had like near Doklam between Bhutan and Sikkim, and all of those things. So I think they are showing what they believe is the Chinese map, and it is for others to stand up and prove their territory otherwise. Anyways, I think see there are people who say the reverse about India as well, about Gilgit Baltistan and Pakistan occupied Kashmir as well as Aksai Chin. Like we claim all of it versus like there are contesting things. But here, what has China done is on the diplomacy front, they don't have that many friends in this sense, and like this is kind of alienating some other countries. Whether you would want to have like better relationships, especially with the antagonistic relationship with the US, but this is more of projecting power, and I think all the others are coming across and saying in the 10 dash line now there's a dispute with Indonesia as well. So that's the new one. I would like to say people take maps very seriously. This is very important. In the movie Barbie, there randomly in the map they've shown the China's 9 dash line version, and that is why the movie Barbie was not released in Vietnam, because the Vietnamese said that this is inappropriate, right? So people take maps very seriously. This is taken as a serious with a lot of thought. So I think there is something which is in there. It is for the other countries to step up, other countries to have their own maps, and also you want to get the people in those regions to be like, especially for India. So you want the Arunachalis as well as the Ladakhis to feel Indian more than feeling Chinese, despite China on an average being 5 times as rich as India, right? We have same population, similar population. The GDP is 5 times as much. So I think that's also their part of nation building, part of like wanting everybody to have like uh, unity in diversity is what we call it in China. It's like more uh, unity in uniformity, but maybe that's their perception about everyone being Han Chinese. But this is taken quite seriously. I think there have been issues. So there are always issues. There were issues even like earlier with North Korea, but I think and then apparently there were issues earlier with Pakistan as well. But like Pakistan was claiming all parts of Gilgit Baltistan itself, but then it's like given up some territory, etc. So there are disputes with a lot of countries, and everybody is taking claims. And what you will see is whose power will finally kind of prevail, right, on the ground. Do the people there, do they want to be with aligned with whom? And a lot of these places are quite sparsely populated. So you've got in the South China Sea, there are the Spratly Islands and the Mischief Islands. They're just atolls, but now they've poured over concrete. built some airports with an airline landing strip. They pushed population in there. So again, this is a part of projecting their power. They want to be a superpower, like the US, and they are trying to do that. And I think maybe this over aggression kind of makes everybody else align against them, or like find some sort of allies or one common topic. So like you've seen India's exporting some BrahMos missiles to Vietnam. You see Taiwanese companies setting up a parallel iPhone assembly plants in India. So I think this is also an opportunity. So this kind of allows you to have align with the people who have something else with China to see how can you cooperate better. So I think that's just that. Most people know that these maps are China's interpretation of what China is. uh, Indians are free to make their own maps, or like there are people I've seen those Akhand Bharat vision maps, etc. Right, which goes all the way from Afghanistan or even Uzbekistan all the way to Bali in Indonesia. So, but yeah, I think uh, we should not take it like these maps while they're taken too seriously. There's not much change on ground, and we should just try and make the most of this to see how we can cooperate with others and counter common dispute.
Yeah. No, I think the others also, Philippines, Malaysia, Vietnam, and Taiwan, have also joined India in rejecting this map, and I have issued strongly worded statements as well, right? So,